and welcome to the Keys to Therapy. Today's guest is Jessica. Hey, Jessica.
Hello, Sam.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us some background.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. So, thank you so much for having me on.
Hey.
So, I'm actually a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse for about 12 years. And I am, as of the last 3 years, also a self love life coach. And I'm certified in trauma informed breathwork facilitation. So, I do a lot of things,
Yeah.
a lot of different things. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. So, it's cool too because you're the first guest who's not a therapist, but you're like adjacent to us because you're in a helping profession too. So, it'd be cool to have your perspective on some things today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be able to share a little bit because I like what you just said about being adjacent because I have been adjacent to the mental health field, not just from a nursing perspective, but as a client, like as a mental health client. I've seen a therapist for many, many years for my own personal journey. So I'm really
Right.
excited to kind of bring a blend of that perspective.
Oh, then that's great because I feel like this field needs more collaboration. There needs to be more expansion. I think sometimes it can be very narrow.
Yeah.
And even sometimes a little bougie. So I think it's helpful to have a range of perspectives too. Um, well, do you want to share a little bit more about your professional background? Maybe some places you've worked, some things that you've
Yeah.
seen?
Yeah, so my start in the medical field was actually as an ER nurse.
Mm.
So I worked at Duke ER for almost 8 years before I officially retired from what I call hospital nursing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been in private practice ever since. So it's been about 9 years of private practice as an aesthetic and wellness, kind of holistic wellness nurse.
Nice.
So I have been doing that pretty much my entire adult life, being in the medical field. And then it was really just in the last, since COVID that I decided to dive into full blown entrepreneurship and opening up, being a life coach for women. And then that has just blossomed and expanded from there. So um, I without telling you all the little details of my medical background, because that's pretty much the gist of it,
Yeah.
um, I will also add in there that um, I have a lot of other, not really jobs, but just like passions and hobbies. So I'm, as Desiree, someone we both know, would say,
Yeah.
multi-passionate type of person. So I'm very artistic. I love to sing, I dance, I do a little bit of acting, a little bit of amateur modeling, and a lot of other different like little creative pursuits because I think that's a really important part for me to be
Mhm.
super well-rounded.
Oh, yeah. And then to have that balance too between your work and your personhood, like who you are, what makes you up, because so many people's identity, I feel like, is rooted in what they do. So it's
A
nice that
hundred.
you've got all these other elements.
Yeah. And it's funny as you say that, what comes to mind too is I recently discovered this on a deeper level, but I don't know if you can relate to this, but I kind of grew up with the idea that all of your hobbies and passions, anything that you're good at or interested in, you should like turn them into a career somehow or like
Hmm.
make money from them, which puts so much pressure. I wasn't really brought up to really value hobbies for what they are, just
Hmm.
hobbies. But as I've become an adult and matured more, I realize, oh, it's important to have hobbies and passions outside of your actual money making career or business.
Yes.
If they can coincide, great. But
Right.
nothing wrong with having some side things that never make you a dime just because you love
Mhm.
it and it adds to your happiness.
Exactly. And I feel like for some people, when they pursue a career in the thing that's their passion, over time it may lose some of its shine because now you're forced to do it, or you can't be as creative with it, or there's so much pressure on it financially. So it's nice to have that balance.
Yeah, agreed.
Awesome. Well, what do you think drew you to this work? I know you mentioned some personal stuff that has kind of pulled you to it.
Yeah, and I'll start a little even further back, right? I kind of have always been a coach type personality.
Hmm.
Some of that stems from my codependency, which I am a recovering codependent, but I have turned a lot of those traits of really wanting to help others and being a sort of a mentor type personality into, something that is a gift that I can use in a balanced way, that's not driven by like a codependent pattern,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not sacrificing my own needs. But um, so back to, even in college, I was a coach. I coached sports, and I really just enjoyed mentorship. And then once I got into private practice, so like jumping up ahead into my late 20s, I really started to notice that my clients would often, we would often get into really deep topics
Mm.
during our short time together. And they would often cry in front of me, be really vulnerable. That still happens, you know.
Yeah.
And I just tell them it's okay. Like, this is part of my superpower. One of my gifts is a very empathetic person, and people feel comfortable sharing and opening up around me. And I was just getting all this feedback from clients saying, wow, like, thank you so much. I feel like I owe you for a therapy session, and I was just constantly being told, like, hey, you should go back to school and be a therapist, or hey, you should be a coach. You'd be really great. I'm like, no, 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 no. So I resisted it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then my whole world changed when my mother passed away. She had a super rare form of brain cancer that took her at the age of 54, which is very, very young.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to learn how to live life an entire new way. It was an entire new existence that I had never imagined I would have for my life. So, my journey with grief, combined with my natural coaching abilities, and then combined with my existing holistic health knowledge, and then my own personal experience with therapy over the years from my own childhood, put all those things together. And it's like I've been given so many incredible gifts through the pain that I've experienced. And, I just get a lot of fulfillment and joy out of passing along that knowledge to others and offering support and guidance to others on their journey. So, in a nutshell, there you go.
Yeah, but I feel like it's likely, it's not even likely, it's definitely going to make you better at what you do,
Mhm.
having that personal experience. And I think even for therapists, I've had people say stuff like clients say things along the lines of, well, I can tell you to just like read that in a book.
Right.
And so the empathy, like you can have it without having certain experiences, but having those experiences is going to make that empathy and that connection run so much deeper
Oh, yeah.
with your clients without you even having to say what you've gone through. They're just going to know that you get it on a different level, which is going to help that connection, is going to help their healing in a
Yeah.
different way.
Because they feel your energy. That's the
Hmm.
other level. Is it's like it's grounded. It's not just like you said, words that I'm repeating, which sometimes I'll repeat quotes, or I'll take
Yeah.
materials that I learned from other people. That's part of the process too.
Hmm.
But what makes the most difference is your own story, your own personal experience with it. People want to know, what have you done that's worked for you,
Hmm.
through a similar challenge that they're dealing with that they haven't found their way out of yet. So um, a quote that I was going to bring in later on, but it's just kind of the perfect time to drop it. It just comes to mind. Is I don't remember where I even heard this quote, to be honest. But you can only take people as far as you've taken yourself.
Mm.
So, especially as a therapist or a healer or a coach or a mentor, you're limited to how far you can take your clients and your patients, in my personal opinion,
Yeah.
to how deep you've done your own work. So that's why it's an ongoing journey for both provider and patient, right? In that way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes so much sense because there's so many therapists that don't do their own work.
Oh yeah.
And so that shows up in sessions, whether they're triggered, whether they have burnout quicker now, or whatever the situation is. So I think that that definitely applies for probably every field, but
Yeah.
definitely in a healer helping one. You're going to be very, very limited if you're not
Mm-hmm.
doing the work for yourself.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And it doesn't mean that, because there's a part of me that's a perfectionist. That's one of
Hmm.
my protector parts, and she's really strong, and I love her so much. But she would freak out and say, "Well, gosh, that means I can't help anybody because I don't have it all figured out yet."
Hmm.
But that's not true either.
No.
Like, actually, and I've been able to prove that to myself. Like, coaches and mentors told me that, and have told me that for the past 3 years that I've been doing this, and I've been able to finally prove to myself that that is true. You actually
Yeah.
can help someone right where you're at. You don't have to have it all figured out. You have enough experience and enough knowledge to be able to help someone where they're at in their journey.
Hmm. Exactly. You just can't be at the start of yours helping
Right.
somebody get to the end of theirs, because it's like you
Correct.
said, you'll kind of be mismatched. So
Correct.
yeah, it's just keep doing the work, and the work is kind of constant depending on what's going on. I mean, look at COVID. Everybody who even thought that they were doing really well, suddenly the entire world shifted, and then it's like, oh, okay, here's some new work. Like there's always going to be new work.
Oh yeah.
But
Oh yeah. Life, that's life, and that's
mhm,
something I've had to come to. I think that's part of emotional maturity and growing up, is you do get to this point in adulthood where you let go of that childhood fantasy a little bit more, and accept the reality that life is going to constantly bring you waves of contrast.
mhm,
But the way to manage that is like learning how to surf. That's one of my favorite analogies, is like learning how to surf the waves of life. You don't have to keep
yeah,
getting pummeled, and you don't have to feel like you're constantly drowning in the waves, but the waves are going to keep coming.
mhm,
So why not figure out how to surf, try to have fun with it, get some lessons, get some support, have a
yeah,
posse,
yeah.
get a cool ass surfboard, like, and eventually you learn how to just go for it. But it's a lifelong skill, and it's a
Mhm.
lifelong evolution of your journey. It's a lifelong relationship with yourself and with life, is how I see it.
Yeah, exactly. I love that analogy too, because it's like, okay, you've mastered these little baby waves. Now go to this new location and hit these major ones. And you kind of work your way up and challenge yourself. But
And I think a lot of people get hit by waves that are way bigger than they can. I mean, that's trauma, right?
absolutely.
When we get hit with waves of life that are bigger than what we have the capacity in the moment to really process and understand, that it does, it knocks us down. We have residual trauma that needs to then be processed later. And some people never figure that out, or
Mhm.
they just keep getting hit by waves and more waves, because they're like, well, that's the way life's always been, and it's just going to keep being this way, and there's
Yeah.
nothing I can do about it. And they just stay in this like kind of victim mentality. But it's like, no matter how or why, that's a whole nother philosophical conversation. The whole, why do the waves come in the first place? Um, but regardless of what's happened to you in your life, I personally believe that there is always a way forward, and there's
Mhm.
always a way out, and there's always a way to heal, and be able to actually enjoy what you're really meant to enjoy in this life, and have a good life, have a good, fulfilling life. It's possible.
Right. And that brings me to, I guess, our main point today.
Yeah.
Why I want your perspective is that in that healing process, therapy is one route to that. That is not the be all end all for everybody.
Right.
And I think a lot of times for new therapists in school, that's kind of what's taught to you. I mean, maybe when they talk about collaboration, possibly like medication providers, but that's pretty much where it stops. But yet, like, that's such a teeny part of everyone's lives. And I think something that is very much needed in this field, and I wish people would talk about more, is finding that holistic approach. I think a lot of therapy too, and it's kind of insurance based. That's part of the issue, but everything's so diagnosed, like diagnostic. We need the diagnosis, we need the code, we need steps, we need the treatment plans, we need all of these very clinical things that we're approaching clients with at times. And again, that's not the whole person. There's all these other elements that are being left out.
Yeah.
And even though a lot of that is probably out of the scope of what therapists can provide, there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration outside of just psychiatry
Yes.
and therapy. So I was curious if you could speak a little bit on what a holistic collaborative approach would look like between therapists and other helping professions.
So glad you asked. Um, and as you were describing that, I'm like, that's exactly, I would say that was one of the biggest reasons I left traditional medicine, was because even though I was helping save lives a lot of the time in the ER,
Hmm.
I was not able to help my patients in the way that I saw that they needed. Like, I saw
Hmm.
how our medical health care system, our sick care system,
Hmm.
um, and our mental health system has been failing our population in many ways. Um, although the systems themselves are made up of people who really care and are trying
Hmm.
their best, but they're miseducated, they're misguided a lot of the times. And yeah, there's a lot, like you said, a lot of opportunity for reform there and growth. So when it comes to mental health and collaborative holistic care, I think it's about looking beyond what the traditional Western idea of mental health services offers, just like you said. And I honestly, I really do value talk therapy and cognitive behavioral
Hmm.
therapy. I love hearing about new modalities like brain spotting. I still don't even
Yeah.
know what that really is, but
I'll explain it one episode because I'm trained
okay.
in it.
And there's other things out there too, but
Yeah.
for me and for the people that I've worked with, I felt like, the body was kind of being left out of the healing picture.
Hmm.
And, it wasn't really until I found somatic therapy and breath work uh, that I really fully understood how important the body is in the healing process, just as important as the mind, especially for people who are like how I used to be, which was emotionally retracted. My very first experience in therapy, talking about my childhood, I was in my early 20s. I had just started nursing school. I was severely depressed,
Mm.
to the point of I almost got kicked out because I couldn't show up to classes enough because I couldn't get out of bed. So I finally started to go to therapy, and I was having night terrors. I mean, there was all kinds of, stuff, but I was, oh, I don't want to do therapy. I'm so emotionally retracted. There's nothing going on. It's fine. My first real therapy session where she was able to kind of break through and show some emotion was talking about my inner child.
Mm.
And literally, it's like the tears showed up, and then she was like, "Do you see what you just did there? Like a faucet. You just turned it right off. Like
Hmm.
how did you do that? Like that was my first clue that, oh, that's not normal."
Right.
Oh, okay. So, and that was the very beginning. And I feel like I've lost track a little bit on the point I was trying to make, but just,
Yeah.
back to involving the body, I found that using something like breath work helped me get out of my mind and get more
Hmm.
into my body where the emotions had been sitting that haven't been processed,
Hmm.
because that is one of my coping mechanisms, is to over intellectualize and over analyze things with my brain, and my brain is so good at getting me out of my body so that I don't have to feel the
Right.
uncomfortable feelings that I didn't, and still sometimes to this day don't always feel fully capable of processing. I've come a long, long way. But it was really once I was able to get these practices, that it made a huge difference for me. So back to, let me kind of bring it back a little bit. Um, Back to just, more holistic collaborative approach. I mean, holistic means, obvi, let's look at the whole picture, right?
Right.
And being willing to collaborate with various healers and other modalities and practitioners so that, or that clients may already be seeing, or
Hmm.
that they're interested in seeing in for their overall care and wellness. So to me, this means, helping clients find tools that work for them, for not just their mental and emotional health, but for their physical and their spiritual health and their social
Hmm.
health as well. So I kind of thought up some examples. Like, for one example would be, um, you know, a therapist, in addition to talk therapy, and helping their clients, work through their emotions as they
Hmm.
recall, memories and traumatic events. Maybe you also encourage your client to develop a breathwork practice, especially if you refer them to like a trauma informed guide. And that can really help them bring up some more stuck emotional energy to the surface. And then I love how, if some, like, for example, when I work with a breath client, I
Hmm.
love it when they're in therapy already.
Hmm.
Because if they're working with me and something comes up that's like they need to keep unpacking it
Yeah.
further with, like, some professional guidance, I even though I can offer some guidance and I can offer support and I can hold a space, that's therapeutic, but it's not the same,
Hmm.
as having all the skill sets that a mental health professional is going to be able to have to kind of take you through unpacking those deeper issues, that something like breath work is helping you come up and face.
Yeah.
So that's just one example. Um, And then I did, I'm going to look at my notes really quick because I did have something really important I wanted to add to this part of
Mhm.
the discussion. I don't want to forget it.
No, no, you're good. You're saying a lot that's bringing up stuff for me while you're looking for it.
Oh,
So
good, good, good,
I think
good.
a
Yeah.
piece of it too, you hit on coping skills, right? There's gonna be certain coping skills that maybe certain therapists aren't trained in or don't know, or they are limited with how much they're allowed to share or speak on certain things. That's why so many therapists, I think, at times are like, go to yoga or
Yeah.
go work out. But there's so many things, like you said, like breath work, or there's trauma informed yoga. Like there's different ways that we can refer to different professionals to access certain things. And when you were saying about you being able to flip your own emotions off, it's like all that was stored somewhere physically. And if
Mm-hmm.
your brain's blocking it, you're going to have blocks in therapy for how much you can talk about it.
Yep.
And a lot of therapy is related to talk therapy. There are a few like brain spotting or EMDR that can start accessing different parts of you,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't fit for everybody. And that's also not going to hit on everything.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really cool that there are some other options out there with other professionals that can be a mutual collaborative relationship where it's like, hey, I feel like this person's got something stored here. Here's this class. Here's this,
Yes.
person you can work with on that. And then same thing for you. You could be like, hey, here's these things I'm seeing come up for you. I'm
Yeah.
glad you were able to access them here, process them there. And
Yeah.
it can be like a very fluid back and forth, again, whole person kind of approach to them. And I bet those people would get better faster than just doing one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And therapists do have a unique opportunity to guide their patients toward that, especially
Mhm.
a patient who doesn't know how to self advocate for, like, I've self advocated for all of these things in my life, but not everybody is like this.
No.
I realized. So, therapist and certainly any medical professional has an opportunity, but
Yeah.
therapist especially has this opportunity to kind of pick up where our other medical professionals are dropping the ball.
Hmm.
There are so many uh, good doctors, well-meaning doctors, and health professionals who are not referring their patients to a nutritionist,
Hmm.
who are not referring their patients to physical therapy or a workout regimen and someone to help them stay on track with their physical health. They're not recommending breath work or other forms of mental and emotional health modalities. Like, they're just prescribing pills and doing whatever can be billed to insurance, surgeries and pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
you know so and it's not necessarily their fault. Like, that's how they're indoctrinated. There's a
Right.
pun.
Yeah, it's the system.
I
It's
love accidental puns. Accidental
yeah.
puns are the best. Okay, but yeah, the system is kind of designed that way, and
Yeah.
so therapists have a great opportunity as they open themselves up to their own holistic set of tools for your own self care.
Hmm.
Then you can recommend to your patients, and especially if you have like your Rolodex of resources.
Yep.
So have your list of people who are other practitioners in this space, in the wellness and the healing space, that you can refer out, that you've vetted.
Hmm.
Especially when it comes to certain things. Like, I'm not too worried about your massage therapist being trauma informed, which that would be great.
Yeah.
But I really highly recommend trauma informed guidance when it comes to breath work and when
Hmm.
it comes to even yoga. So vetting those resources before you recommend them, and then having a free resource list, books, podcasts,
Hmm.
YouTube channels,
Yeah.
giving them that free education, especially when they say, oh, I can't afford that right now,
Hmm.
or I can barely afford this, so I really don't know how else to, so at least it gets them started, and,
Yeah.
and maybe they can get the ball rolling themselves and save up, or just reprioritize their finances and expand their well-being budget, you know?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's right. Like having that referral list that goes outside of what we're traditionally taught with, oh, medicine. Oh, they're having these symptoms, they're having these blocks. Try medication, because we're sort of told the same thing in
Mhm.
grad school too for therapists. It's like, oh, if you're seeing that they're not getting better, they may need to get on meds. And it's like, but that's not the answer for everybody. And you're also not trying every option. So there's so many different things out here. And even like you were saying, like free resources, like there's people who do I've thought of like, gosh, who's the one person? There's that one lady that does yoga. videos, like a whole series for free. And like she'll have different poses. I've seen people do it with Pilates at home,
Yep. At
TikTok,
home.
whatever. Yeah, there's ways to go about finding these resources. And I
Yes.
think, especially depending on where your client's at as the therapist, it would be great to have some of these things built up because not everybody's going to want to or can or should be on medication.
Right.
And you need to have, I guess, like a very like robust referral source for each
Mm,
client. So if there is somebody who's like, oh no, I'm not doing medication, I've had a terrible experience,
right.
you don't want to just be stuck there. Be like, okay, I guess we're just going to keep going with therapy.
Right.
Maybe there's some other ways to access certain things that are going on with them. And you're right, a lot of these other helping professions, there's such a push now for people to be trauma informed.
Hmm.
So that's great because then that means that they're going to understand you on a different level if that's what you're experiencing. And it's safer to maybe go that approach too. And I think some therapists would feel better referring clients to people who they know have that type of training and background.
Yeah. I think the trauma informed piece, like you said, is one of the most important aspects when you're referring out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad it's becoming more of a trend.
Yeah.
And I hope, obviously every trauma informed education is not the same. But at least the conversation is becoming more and more normalized. It's becoming a concept that is more and more familiar to the general public and to just people in the healing space.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is exactly what we're all trying to figure out how to do in one way or another is heal from our freaking trauma.
Exactly.
So, and a lot of these modalities that we're doing, they are really powerful and
Mm-hmm.
they do bring up some severe trauma for people. And if you're not trained at least enough to be able to say, hey, I'm trauma informed, to know how to handle that. And then, especially to have in your back pocket, like, hey, I've got a therapist to refer you to for further support.
Yeah.
That's so important to me. That was actually why I waited as long as I did, and I chose pause as my is who I wanted to get my certification through with
Mm-hmm.
breathwork, because having that trauma informed perspective was so important to me because of my background with my own personal psychological emotional trauma, and from being a trauma nurse for
Yes.
so many years. I'm just like, this is
You're
important.
right. And I mean, everybody's gone through some level of trauma, whether it's like
Yes.
the therapy role will say like little T trauma or big T trauma.
Uh-huh.
Like everybody's
Uh-huh.
experienced something.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really helpful to know that there's professionals in other arenas that are out here being informed about the best practices for clients because sometimes somebody may think they don't have trauma until they're in a certain situation and things, like you said, they come up.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
really important.
That's another thing that it makes me think of this other point when it comes to breath work and trauma.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't consider what's actual trauma for them trauma,
Mm-hmm.
because they think of big T trauma. They
Mm-hmm.
think of terrible car accident is trauma.
Right.
Losing a loved one early is traumatic. Losing a child is traumatic. So we think of those severe sexual abuse or severe
Mm-hmm.
physical abuse, or we think of these things as traumatic. What we're finally realizing as a society, I believe, is just how impactful and widespread emotional trauma is,
Mm-hmm.
and how easy it is to be emotionally traumatized.
Oh yeah.
It's so easy literally, I heard somebody say being weaned from the breast can be traumatizing to
Mm-hmm.
to a child. And those little traumas are really big traumas that happen when you're really really little, before your brain is, let's say 7 or 8 years old, and able to start to have different sets of brainwave functioning and cognitive functioning, and you really just experience the world in a from an emotional place.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you revisit those traumatic feelings in your body, and maybe it comes with a memory as context, but maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
And our brain wants to be like, well, what does it mean? What is it from? But sometimes there is no context, but it needs to be felt. It needs to be processed through the body. So I think that for me, that's where breath work again helped me kind of plug some pieces together
Mm-hmm.
and remind myself that, oh, I can heal and I can process, and I my brain doesn't have to be in charge of it. My brain doesn't even
Mhm.
have to understand it.
Yep.
It just has to let go and make a conscious choice of trusting that my body knows what to do
Mhm.
and just go with it.
Yeah, and sometimes your brain shouldn't be in charge. It's
Correct.
blocking you from
Right.
accessing those points.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like it's stored somewhere in your body, so let your body be the thing that releases it.
Yeah.
Ah,
Exactly. Mm.
well, so with therapists, like I said, we're not taught any of this. So, this is probably really new for a lot of people to think about collaborating with holistic professionals.
Hmm.
I think even sometimes the word holistic can get like it could be stereotyped.
Yeah.
Crunchy granola, whatever
Woo
way.
woo. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You know
Hmm.
that they're vegan. You know they're this. Like there's always like these stereotypes, which I mean, maybe some of it's true, but like not everything. And I
Right.
think some of the stereotypes are negative instead of looking at like the positives of it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to different like techniques or strategies or things that therapists can do when trying to form some of these relationships or trying to collaborate with holistic professionals, like what do you think or where should they start or what should they try to employ?
I think they should start with their own journey.
Okay.
I literally think that you should start with, first of all, where do you feel like in your own life that you need some extra support, or what are you drawn to? Like, is it breath work that you're most curious about?
Mm-hmm.
Is it yoga that you're more curious about diving into? Is it massage therapy, and is it some other version of somatic therapy? Like, what is it specific? Is it crystals? Is it,
Yeah.
Reiki? Is it whatever? Um, Exploring all of those things for yourself a little
Mm-hmm.
bit first, and then start to find what you love and what's working for you, and you've seen it working for other people that you kind of come into contact on your journey of exploration.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then go from there. Again, you're putting together your resource list.
Yeah.
But how better way? Like, I'm not going to give a resource to somebody or a recommendation to somebody if I've not vetted it or tried it myself first.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's where you start. I,
Yeah. I love that though, because then it gives the therapist a chance to experience it firsthand. So
hmm
when they are possibly recommending it, it could be like, oh, this place, like I went to a class,
hmm
the trauma informed yoga class, and this is what I felt.
Yeah.
Or when I did a breath work class, this is what I got from it, or this is how,
Yeah.
because there can be a level of self disclosure there that
Yes.
can help you can explain stuff in a way that again isn't just I read it in a book.
Right.
So I think that's really helpful. Plus, like you mentioned earlier, if you're going to these classes as the therapist, you are now creating this referral network
hmm
that goes both ways. So if I went to your class and I was like, this was amazing, like I know so many clients that would benefit from
Yeah.
this, I would feel so comfortable then being like, listen, I can tell you're blocked or I can tell you're wanting more.
Uh-huh.
Try this and see
Yep.
how it works. And so it benefits the client, it benefits us, as professionals with referrals. I think it also can help us, like you said, be more clear headed and in a good space for our own work as
Yeah.
well.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
I'm all about win-wins in life, and that's doesn't seem like it's always possible, but if you keep striving for that,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a perfect example of that. Like, we want a win-win where this is a tool that I can share that's not only benefiting you, the client, but I know it's going to benefit you, the client, because it's already benefiting me.
Mm-hmm.
And as therapists, as healers, as providers of some kind of service, or working with people, it's so important, and especially to avoid burnout and things, to really be good about your own self-care
Mm-hmm.
first. You know,
Yep.
that is first and foremost, because that's how you're going to be the most effective. Um,
First therapist, like
yeah.
being able to employ some of these, start collaborating,
Mhm.
experience it themselves. I'm guessing too, probably along the same lines, like doing research for themselves as well, if there's these areas that they don't know anything about and figuring
Yes.
out what what options are out there, even and maybe consulting with some other professionals just to
Mhm.
kind of feel out what they do and how they work too,
Yeah.
even if they can't or they're not ready to dive into a class or that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I would be happy to, as before we wrap things up, I had planned, in case, if you wanted me to teach like a simple breathing technique that people can try on their own, and then if they love it, they can share it with their clients.
Yeah.
It's pretty common, so you may already know about it, but sometimes it's just nice to hear things on repetition
Mhm.
and try it out. And then I also have a kind of a little demonstration that I could do if you want of some somatic and vocal expression that's not breath work.
Okay.
Uh, so something a little bit different. So like two different quick
Yeah.
tools that you could use. Anybody could use either of these tools to help with processing anxiety. Sometimes I use it for anger processing. It can certainly help you like regulate your nervous system, kind of ground yourself, calm yourself down, that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, that would be perfect. Can you explain a little bit what breath work is for the
Yeah,
people who have no idea?
yeah, awesome, honest. So, breathwork is basically a super ancient healing modality. It's been around for centuries, but it's really gained popularity again in the last like 10 years.
Mm.
Um, it came to the U.S. I want to say in like the 70s. I'm pretty sure, and breathing that you do in yoga is technically a type of breath work.
Mm.
And there's a lot of different types. But what I was taught is an amalgamation of like a certain number of breathing patterns that you use intentionally. And there's kind of two different categories of breath work, right? So we have integrative and we have meditative. And
Mm.
integrative breath work is like that short spurt, 3 to 5 minutes at a time that you can often do on your own. To kind of help you throughout your day for either boosting energy or regrounding your energy or balancing your energy, or to just kind of get through some stress
Mm.
or some mild, I would call mild anxiety.
Okay.
Um, I like these as like proactive.
Mm.
I
Okay.
mean, they can be used once you're triggered too, but it's
Yeah.
usually a little bit more in depth. So integrative little spurts of breath work is something that you can kind of do proactively throughout your day when emotions are still kind of small.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's meditative breath work, which you probably, not probably, you certainly want to do with a guide until you're well into a practice.
Okay.
And that's a longer stint. That's really more for transformation. That's more for like entering into an altered state of consciousness. I've had people exit, a breathwork journey in that way, saying things like, I feel so blissed out. I feel high. Like,
Oh.
I've had people have really big emotional releases. Um, I've had all kinds of weird, interesting reactions, but in general, everyone's reaction is like, that was amazing. When do we do it again? Like,
Oh,
you know,
that's cool.
yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of different kinds of breath work out there. Wim Hof is very popular because it's Wim Hof. He's a celebrity. He does a lot of really interesting, crazy things. He does a lot of work with
Mhm.
cold therapy. Um, but again, this is where the trauma informed piece becomes really important, because I think a lot of people are going to jump onto the fad of
Mm.
breath work, which the pro of that is people are trying
Yeah.
something new and tapping into a modality that can be really powerful for them. But the downside to that is there unfortunately are going to be some people who experience breath work in a way that either re-traumatizes them or that just doesn't give them enough guidance that they're just like, I don't know if that's for me, and then they kind of miss out on the potential of
Mhm.
how great it can be for them.
Right. Or some people I'm sure leave worse than when they came in if the person's uninformed,
Yeah,
because that can
yeah,
happen with therapy as well. I mean,
yeah.
I've known of some people who maybe have taken a training like EMDR or something that's pretty intense and you're, activating parts of someone's brain. And
Mhm,
if they don't know how to do it properly, they don't close that out for the session. That person's just activated
mhm.
the entire day, week, month, whatever else. And so you could do more harm that
Yeah,
way. So yeah, I think that's good advice in general. It sounds like just to pick somebody who was trained and trauma informed if
yeah,
possible.
yeah. And I will also say that our breath is, if for those who don't already know, like our breath is directly related to the state of our nervous system.
Mm.
So we can literally use different breath patterns to either upregulate or downregulate different parts of our nervous system. And so most of the time, I think the most popular breath work that I know of is people trying to downregulate. Like, I need to calm myself. I need to I'm too hyped up, but they're in that state of fight or flight,
Yeah.
survival mode, panic mode, anxiety, so a lot of breath work is meant to just chill, right? But you can also use breath work intentionally to activate that part of the nervous system,
Mm.
but while still staying connected to your body and grounded and feeling safe, and using the concept of titration, which is going at your own pace, so that you're not leaning past or going over your boundaries,
Mhm.
leaning into some discomfort, leaning into that edge, but not going over
Mhm.
into re-traumatization type land. So that's the concept of titration in a nutshell. But that is super important when it comes to breath work, and I think that people are really catching on. I really do. It's becoming really, really popular. It's growing. I heard a statistic last year that it's growing like by 400% a year,
Oh, wow.
as an industry, which had,
Pros and cons, like
in
anything.
America, yeah, we turn everything into an industry, into a business. And it's like, I get
True.
it, but at the same time, it's like, that's why I'm so passionate about this. I don't really do the breathwork piece as like a trying to make a lot of money from it. I
Mhm.
don't. I do it more so for the joy and fulfillment of it, and because I know it's such a powerful healing modality. So it helps people who just breathe with me just because, and it helps people who work with me as a client, as a coach. I
Yeah.
utilize breath work in my coaching practice. So I think it's a skill set that, honestly, you know you don't necessarily have to like keep paying for it. Like, investing yourself to learn about it and to have some proper guidance for a while,
Mhm.
or throughout your life, just like you would with therapy.
Yeah.
But then take those tools that you learn, use them on your own for free.
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know?
Exactly. Yeah, just have the foundation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
I would love to show you the box breath. Have you heard of the box breath?
Yeah, but I think it'll be great, especially because this will be on YouTube, so people can see
Yeah.
how you're doing it too. So yeah, go for it.
So I'm sure there's different variations. So I'm just going to teach you the one variation that I'm familiar with.
Hmm.
But you're basically going to be breathing in a kind of like a box. So you're going to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And when you're
Okay.
breathing in, you want to really bring that inhale nice and deep down into your rib cage, expand the solar plexus, right? So you don't want to just breathe from like here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we forget, especially when we're anxious and we're in that fight or flight nervous system activation, we breathe rapid and shallow, right? So
Yes.
something as simple as switching to a deeper breath, slower breath, and especially breathing in through the nose is very calming for your nervous system. Okay.
Mm.
So the way this works is you want to count to either 3 or 4. You
Okay.
can honestly choose any number you want, but I suggest starting with the number 3 or 4. And you're going to count to 3 or 4 as you breathe in. Hold it at the top of that inhale, counting to 3 or 4. And then as you exhale, count to 3 or 4. And hold at the bottom of the exhale, counting again to 3 or 4. So it's in for 3,
Hmm.
hold for 3, out for 3, hold for 3. And you just keep repeating, you know. So it just kind of box it out.
Hmm. I like that. I can see a lot of clients who would really benefit from that and love the numbers.
Yes.
Like so many of mine would love that because it's concrete. So
Yes.
it's something that they even like the people who aren't maybe as easily or not as attracted to or not as easily like bought into some of like the physical stuff because they're
Mm-hmm.
still in that like the brain's ruling everything and trying to protect them. Something
Yeah.
as simple as count to three and breathe,
Yeah.
and giving them those steps. There's
Yeah.
so few, they're so simple that I feel like they could buy into that a little bit.
Oh, 100%. Growing up, we were told, yeah, part of anger management is like count to 10 and breathe.
Yeah.
Um, and we thought, oh, that's so foolish. That's so dumb. It freaking works. Like,
Hmm.
just
Yep.
and I love what you said about how, I think that for beginners, counting really does help you
Hmm.
approach breath work for the first time, because it can be a little intimidating, especially when you're not used to, like, I'm advanced in my practice because I've done so much work with breath work as part of my certification in my own
Yeah.
practice. So like, I love being able to just kind of make up my choreography as I go with my own pacing, with my own, because I know how to listen to my body and I know how to tap in and I'm comfortable with that. But for someone else who's like brand new to all of this, they
Mhm.
get really in their head. So it's a great, the counting is a great way to use your mind, give it something to do,
Yeah.
but give it something that's productive and helping you with the actual breathing. So, yeah, just count to 3 or 4, breathing in through the nose,
Hmm.
hold at the top for 3 or 4, let it out the mouth for 3 or 4, hold at the bottom for 3 or 4.
Yeah. I mean,
Just do that for a couple minutes.
I think even therapists could use that in between certain clients.
100% to clear, to cleanse your energy.
Yeah, meeting with your
Absolutely.
supervisor before your exams, like any of those things that, like you
Yeah.
said, if you're holding a lot of physical tension and stress, that would be a good way to release it. That doesn't require a ton of work. It's not, oh, we'll go to the gym and work out and get rid of some of that nervous energy. That
Yeah.
may be like level 10, and some people are
Yeah.
barely functioning out of one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like that. It's very simple.
And that leads me into the second tool that I could share with you. Again, it's
Yeah.
these are so simple and it's not
Mhm.
like I'm reinventing the wheel by any means. I'm just giving
Sure.
you my perspective on something that I think helps. And
Yeah.
so especially for like that anxious energy or like the other day at my office, I had an incident that made me really angry. So,
Mm.
how do you deal with that, especially in the middle of the day? If you can take a few moments to yourself privately, then do something like this. Use your breath. Do something called shaking. I mean,
Mm.
it can be this simple,
Mhm.
literally this simple. I will often stand and I'll kind of, have my knees soft and my feet hip, width distance apart. And I'll kind of just like bounce,
Mhm.
and kind of shake and feel that kind of uh, the lower part of your back or your root chakra. You just kind of want to like feel that bouncing and you can shake with it as you're doing
Mhm.
that. And if that's not enough, you can get really crazy with
Yeah,
it.
shake it all out.
And some people will dance. Some people will, like, if you're really angry, you might want to like punch the air or like a
Yeah.
pillow, or, there's all kinds of variations you can do. But something as simple as shaking. I actually learned this on a grief retreat, and it was one of the
Oh,
coolest things.
yeah.
So, shaking and being aware of your breath. You can even do
Uh-huh.
the box breathing as you stand there and shake.
Mm.
That's a good combo. And then if you're somewhere that it's possible for you to release vocally, that is really powerful too. So whether that's like talking out loud, right? I think that's always really helpful, especially if you're angry. You can just like
Yeah.
curse and I can't believe you did this and blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
Get all that ish out.
Yeah.
Um, and then sometimes without words, and it doesn't always have to be a scream or a yell because I know that can be really like hard on the throat. Sometimes we need to do that.
Mhm.
But even toning,
Mm.
and or like a ah, just a sigh and just a groan, a hiss, a growl, literally any noise
Mhm.
is just such a powerful release as you're also shaking and you're focusing on your breath in between those noises that are coming out.
Yeah.
That's just for me has been such a powerful combination, and it's so easy. You can literally do it from anywhere. You can do it from in your car, you can go in your closet, you can go in the bathroom, you can go for a walk outside,
Mhm.
and do this in the forest or by a pond or wherever, outside your
Yeah.
building if you're at work. um, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah, I like that though, because I feel like that's something, again, like you said, it's very simple, but it's also something that's within our power to do.
Hmm.
So it's not something that requires a ton of extra energy or effort or money or anything else, but it's connecting you to your body
Yes.
in a way that maybe you're not typically doing.
And here's a caveat I want to add to that too, because if you're anything like me, I have a part that is so good at being tricky at using tools, and some people might call it spiritual bypassing, to try and avoid my feelings,
Mm,
right? This is not what we're using these tools for.
yeah.
So it's about your intention. So when you're connecting yourself to your body in this way, It's not just oh, okay, let me just shake it out because I don't want to feel this way. I mean, yeah,
Hmm.
that's, to be honest, there's a part of you that feels that way. Okay,
Right.
let's own that. But let's also bring in like that wise adult, that wise, loving adult presence, whatever you want to anthropomorphize it as. um, let's bring that
Yeah.
energy in to be with the feelings,
Hmm.
be with the process that the body is experiencing, unconditionally, and observe it without judgment.
Yeah. And what I love too is as you're saying that, I'm picturing like you can do that with your clients virtually or in person too. If
Yep.
they're at a place that they're like, oh my God, I'm so mad, and or they're panicked about something, they'll be like, wait, before we get into it, let's
Uh-huh.
just shake it out. And you both do it. Maybe you need it too as the therapist.
Yes.
So do it with them.
Yes, it actually gives them permission too, especially if you have a
Yeah.
client. I mean, sure, you might have a client or a patient who easily would just do that in front of you, but most likely it would be really still a little bit challenging for them to do that. But if you
Mhm.
start to do it with them and you
Yep.
breathe with them, it automatically gives them permission
Yep.
to just try it. And then they're like, oh, yeah, that felt good. I needed that. And then you'll feel that way too.
Exactly.
And then you're both in a better state
Yeah, more
to be
regulated.
able to process and to talk and to bring some stuff up. And because it's, as you know, as a therapist, like we can't really go there if we
Hmm.
don't feel safe.
Yep.
And part of feeling safe in our body, it's one thing to think, oh, I'm safe. I'm not saying that's not an important part. That's an important piece. But the mind might think all day long, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. But if there
Hmm.
is a pocket of unsafety in the body that you have not yet addressed, your body's still going to be holding that energy and is going to be giving signals to the rest of your body and your brain that no, 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 we're not safe. We're not safe.
Yep.
We're not safe.
Yeah. And
You
it's
know.
going to block you.
Yeah, yeah. And so you can't get very far. So you
Yeah.
have to address the resistance and the unsafety first. And
Hmm.
that takes practice. Takes
Yeah.
practice. If you have a little, we'll make it less sad. Well, it's still sad, but we'll make it, so let's think of an abused puppy.
Oh, yeah.
It's still sad.
Mm-hmm.
But think of an abused puppy. You bring this puppy home, you start to feed it, you start to nourish it, you start to give it love, but it's scared.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it takes a while of you consistently showing up to say, I love you, I'm here for you, before that puppy finally comes out of its little crate and says, I'm willing. And then maybe it's even longer before it starts to wag its tail and
Hmm.
play and get happy again. So it's a process, same with ourselves. Same with all these little pieces and parts of trauma and our psyche and our body that we've not developed a deep relationship with, or that
Hmm.
we've not been able to develop a deep, healthy relationship with. And just like any relationship, it's an evolution. It doesn't happen overnight. You're not all of a sudden, I met you and then tomorrow we're married.
Yeah.
Like it takes time. It
Hmm.
takes time, whether that's in therapy, whether that's, using these somatic tools, whatever version of healing and therapy that you're doing on your journey, it takes time. And your body has its own timeline. So if you can,
Hmm.
just practice being patient with it. But if you keep showing up, that's really your only job. Keep,
Right.
keep showing up, keep being present, keep doing the best you can, keep asking for support, keep exploring your toolkit. And eventually, those parts will surface for you and they'll start to
Hmm.
talk to you, and you'll start to make these breakthroughs that you're like, I've been working on this for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had people say that with certain things, or I've noticed their block. And then you do some brain spotting and they're like, I don't even know where that came from. So there's so many different ways of accessing stuff. And I think, what you said was really important, I think, for newer therapists to hear, especially about things taking time. Because
Yes.
I think in the beginning of their careers, for sure, there's this insecurity of, am I doing this right? How come this person's not getting better?
Yep.
What's going on with me? And a lot of times it's like you got to understand that you're meeting the person where they're at in a
Yes.
way that's that may mean that they are still in that phase where they're in the cage. They're not safe to come out.
Yep.
And it's going to take that time to build trust and everything else. So it sounds like that could be applied for sure for clients, but I think also for newer therapists struggling with some imposter syndrome that
Hmm.
are like, how come I'm not seeing these results? Or how come I'm not personally feeling better about some of what's going on? And they're not giving themselves that grace and time.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it happens in layers, I have found.
Mm-hmm.
Healing happens in layers like the onion. So there's always another layer to approach. I had my therapist actually, who I think is so wise, and she's been in the game for a very long time. She always says to me, "You can't outgrow your childhood. Not
Mm-hmm.
not really, not fully in one lifetime, but you can make huge strides and changes, and the better it gets, the better it gets. And it doesn't have to take you, your entire life for you to enjoy your life. You
Mm.
don't have to be healed to enjoy your life and to live your purpose and your passions and all these things. So just know that it's like anything else, it's a relationship. It's an ongoing relationship that you have with your healing and the different
Mm-hmm.
parts of you. So yeah, have patience. You're in it for the long haul. Like this is
Right.
a lifelong relationship that you're building.
Yeah.
So make it work for you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think it's like you said, there's the personal component, and then there's the part that works with clients, like you as a person do some of this work, understand your healing process. And then for clients, the same thing, understand that there's going to be different resources that maybe they should be accessing, understand what those are, and work with your clients and like just be patient. They're there in the room. That's like that might be the biggest step that they've ever taken. And so it's just being
Yeah.
patient with their healing process too.
And
So,
encouraging them along the way.
mhm.
That's a really important aspect is like you just said, like point out the fact that you're here.
Yeah.
You showed up, whether it's on screen or on my couch, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Like you're here.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part.
It is. It is. I give all my people props for that. So, like, it is not easy to come talk to some random stranger
Yeah.
about your deepest, darkest secrets. All the stuff that you don't even want to admit out loud, and you have to
Right.
me. So,
Right.
yeah, I think that that's important. And again, like you said, there may be certain things that holistically can be approached in a way that we can all collaborate because it's really helping this one person, which then will reverberate into helping us and making us feel better that we're a part of their journey.
Yeah.
Maybe they will then be a better whatever their role is,
Yeah.
mother, son, I mean whatever, and that reverberates out. So I think, I definitely believe in karma. I feel like there's a lot of that can
Mhm.
come from taking this holistic approach, healing this person on multiple levels,
Yep.
and then letting that person go out and potentially just continue to heal and possibly even help heal others.
Yeah. There's always a ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a positive ripple effect that
Absolutely.
you don't even know. Like if we're lucky, we hear about a fraction of the positive impact that the
Mm-hmm.
work we do can make for people and their kids, their other
Mm-hmm.
family members. I've had people
Yeah.
say, "Jess, you don't realize how much you've affected my entire life, like with my children and my family and my grandparents and my friends." And so it really, the changes that you can help one person make, you're really helping hundreds, if not potentially thousands of other people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I think it's some therapists, I think I wish programs would do this, but they're slow. Would be able to kind of shake off some of that. This is not fully our responsibility. Like
Yes.
we need to work as a team. A multiple events got this person to the place that they're at. Multiple events are going to have to help them heal through it.
Yeah.
And so that's multiple
Not
people,
all on you.
resources. Exactly. And
I'm
I
glad
think
you brought that up, actually. Yeah. Finish what you were saying. I cut
oh
you
yeah,
off.
yeah. No, 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 you're good. It's just
Sorry.
it's that exact thing. It's like so many things happen for this person to get to this place. So many things are going to happen for them to get to this other place. And if we kind of gatekeep in some ways, like I know that a lot of professions kind of gatekeep, like this is ours, this is what we do, and I've seen that with therapists and coaches, even there
Mhm.
being this weird thing about, well, this is below this, or this is different than that, or we can do more, we can do less, or this is that, or whatever the situation is. There's
Mhm.
room for everybody
Oh yeah.
because again, we can collaborate and work together and have the same common goal and get this person there faster. So how is that not a win for
Right.
us individually and especially for the client?
Yeah.
So, and along those lines, I wanted to know if there was any additional tips, anything else you had for new therapists that you thought maybe would be important for them to know or do when
Well,
working.
I'm glad you asked because I think it would be kind of what I was thinking of just now
Yeah.
based on what you just said, which is like, it's not all on you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't it tend I think that speaking from my own experience and from other healers and, you know, people that I've talked to in this space, we tend to be the kind of people who are overly responsible for others.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you have to really check yourself and remind yourself that their stuff is their stuff, my stuff is my stuff. And, you know, clear yourself energetically in
Mm-hmm.
between your patients. Clear yourself at the end of the day, mentally, physically, emotionally, as best you can. And there's so many different practices you can do for that.
Oh
So just
yeah.
kind of, you know, try. So we could probably do another episode on that alone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and recognize that it does take a village. So even though you're going to be helping them a lot and doing really great work with them, especially as you collaborate with others, but the other benefit of you collaborating with other holistic professionals is it doesn't put it all on you because it shouldn't,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not all your, you know, even if it was just you and them and they're not even seeing other people and they're making progress, it's still a collaboration between you and the client,
Yeah.
between you and the patient. They have to be willing, you know, they have to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't force that, and you can't, you know, you can encourage, you can support, you can guide, but you can't force it or rush it. They have to be willing. So if you can just remember that too,
Mm-hmm.
and like you said, give yourself grace,
Yeah.
and recognize that you could be the best therapist in the entire world, the most brilliant. And if you have a client who's just not ready to go there,
Not gonna happen.
it's not going to happen. And that's not
Mm-hmm.
your fault.
Yeah.
It's not your fault.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
like that, you know, how you were describing too. It sounds like healing's not linear. There's going to be those bumps. There's going to be those changes and those waves. Yeah.
Backwards, up and down, and it's like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The
Pretty.
trajectory is still in general up here, but it's like
Yeah. It's a little disjointed. And that's for all of us.
yes,
So, oh,
100%.
well,
Yes.
I did want to ask, as far as the stuff that you're working on, what do you have in the works? What projects do you have going on? What things are you doing for yourself, your business, all of it?
Oh, yes, I have so many things. Do you want me to tell you just kind of like my like services and like things that I'm kind of
Yeah.
promoting and that sort
Start
of
with
thing?
the services that you offer and how people can reach you. I'll link everything below too.
Awesome.
And then about the big thing that I know about.
Oh, yeah. The super exciting one. It's all super exciting, but yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways people can work with me. In my local community near the Raleigh area in North Carolina, I do workshops at different yoga studios
Nice.
for breathwork specifically, and sometimes for things like self love. I even have a somatic workshop coming up in June that is actually all about processing anger and grief in a somatic way with some
Wow.
breath work, but we're going to do a lot of different techniques to help people like safely throw a tantrum, um,
Nice.
and process that stuff. So I love that sort of thing. That's, you know, for the most part, aside from the big announcement, that's kind of how you can work with me in person.
Okay.
Otherwise, I work virtually. So I do offer coaching services. I have a group coaching program.
Mm.
With the right client, I'll take on a one-on-one client because I do have a very intensive one-on-one program that I designed for people.
Mm.
And then I also have a self-love club membership, which is something that people can take part in monthly. They don't have to sign up for like a contract or anything. It's just a month to month. And it's they get a new exclusive video about self-love. So there's so many different topics around self-love and
Oh
how to
yeah.
actually like have a self-love practice. So they'll get a new video every month in the membership that's exclusive to them. And we also breathe together once a month live
Mm.
on Zoom.
That's cool.
Yeah, so they get a little bit of both for
Yes.
super, super low, like less than a cup of coffee a week kind of price, you know, super accessible from anywhere in the world. You know, it's all virtual.
Yeah.
And then the big announcement is I am hosting a retreat called Sun, Sea, and Self Love in Costa Rica this coming February of 2024. And I'm looking for 10 women to join me on that journey. and I'm super, super excited about it. It's going to be an epic, epic experience.
Oh yeah, from all the insider info I have,
Yeah.
it looks amazing. It's going to be so beautiful.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
awesome. Well,
Mm.
yes, I will link everything below so that people can check out, the self-love club, your social media, kind of follow you and see what you've got going on, hopefully participate in some of it because, even what you were describing with the somatic workshop, I'm like, wow, there's so many people that could benefit from something like that. And there really isn't that many people offering
Mm-mm,
that kind of work.
mm-mm.
So,
And my vision for this, it's kind of small right now because I've literally just started doing in-person workshops like this year.
yeah.
But my vision is to eventually grow, and each time I come to a new city with a workshop, I want 20, 30, 50 people there,
Hmm.
to really have a larger impact. So it's going to continue to grow. I feel like I'm still just getting started.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun though.
Yes, yes.
But well, thank you so much for taking the time out today
Mm,
to do this and share your knowledge and your expertise and your vision with this audience. I feel like a lot of this is going to be new information for
okay,
most people
good.
on here. And I think that that's going to be really helpful and hopefully open up some eyes,
Yeah,
and maybe some hearts and see like, oh, there's other things out here. There's ways that I don't need to do everything and be everything all the time. I can share this with people outside of psychiatry or
yeah,
doctors. There's so
yeah,
many different healers out here and different types that can work for pretty much anybody. So I
yeah.
think you're bringing a lot of awareness to that.
Good. I appreciate you having me. That's definitely part of my intention is to raise awareness, because I get it. I mean, I'm not a therapist, but I was in the medical health system for many, many years, and so
Yeah.
I can understand the hesitancy to open yourself up to other things. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean you can't still have your education and the things that
Right.
you've taught and the things that you love as far as within your practice, but why not open yourself up to some other tools that are clearly working for people?
Exactly. Yeah. And they can work. And I think a lot of clients, if we don't know about this and we're in a helping profession, what do you
Right.
think the layperson, like they won't know any of this.
Yeah.
So, we've got to be that conduit for them to connect them to as many helpful resources as possible and go outside of the box of what traditional grad schools teach. So,
Yeah. And I want to see more people because I've heard so many people say to me, I got more from you than I ever got from therapy. And I
yeah.
that makes me sad. Like I don't want that to be the trend. I don't
Mhm.
want it to be this culture that we're creating where we don't see therapists anymore. We just go for our coaches and mentors and our holistic healing people all together.
Yeah,
We have to collaborate, because they're equally important.
exactly. Yeah. And I think it goes back to like the fear some people have with collaborating. Does that mean that they mean less? Does that mean there's things they don't understand? So like you said, go learn. That's the best way is
Yeah.
go research it, watch videos, go to classes, figure it out for yourself,
Yeah.
and then pass that on to your clients. But oh,
That's right. Always
well,
growing, always learning. Thank you so
yes,
much, Sam.
I
Thank you.
appreciate you. And I hope then you'll be on a future episode and we can dive
Oh
into
yeah.
some of what to do in between sessions to cleanse because I think shaking it out is going to be needed for many, many people, especially early in their careers. And we should got more
Yes.
tools in that box that can help us
Shake it
out.
out, breathe it out. Yes, girl. I
Yes.
look forward to more. We'll definitely do
Thanks.
this again.
Well, thank you guys for tuning into this episode. If you want to follow on to future episodes, go ahead and subscribe below, and I will see you next time. Bye, Jess.
Bye.